the best of the week on Relevant Radio.
Incredible journeys of faith, heroic holiness.
Welcome back to great stories about great saints on Relevant Radio.
And the Relevant Radio app.
Well, thanks for joining me. In a few minutes, I'd love to get your take also. Who's your go-to saint? I was asking Brooke about that, and hers is Saint Therese. I think we all have them. I want to talk all things saints today, and I didn't intend to talk about Saint Faustina. I didn't intend to talk even about purgatory personally, but I thought maybe this is what the Lord wants. Because look, this month coming up, please have masses said for the souls in purgatory, for your loved ones that have gone before you. Maybe they died in accident, tragedy, by suicide. Maybe they were not close to God. We don't know who's lost, right? They might have lived a very immoral life. I mean, God, I think, is infinitely merciful, but of course, He honors our free choice. It's not God that sends us to hell. We do by the choices that we make, the free choices that we make, to either choose God or to reject Him. And so, look, the afterlife is real. I'm telling you right now, you live forever, okay? I've got a brother-in-law who doesn't believe in an afterlife. He doesn't believe in a God. And I try to tell him, you live forever. You do. And there's such strong evidence. Your ability to choose God and to amend for your sin and to live, and become the saint that you're intended to be, it's over with that final breath, right? The only thing the souls can do is pray for others, to implore God too. They would pray, she says in her diary, fervently, but to no avail for themselves. She said in the diary, only you can come to their aid. And flames were burning them. I've had some people say that when it comes to purgatory, there are levels to it. More greater the purgation, the closer perhaps the fires of hell are than when you're ready to be released to go to heaven. The less intense that purgation is. But she saw souls suffering in this misty place, she says there was a fire that was burning them. She says, it didn't touch me at all. She says, my guardian angel didn't leave me for an instant. She says, so I asked these souls, what is your greatest suffering? And all the souls, they answered her in one voice. They said their greatest torment was longing for God. Now think about that for just a moment. The greatest torment of a soul in purgatory is to see God. They longed for God. That's their greatest torment. Then she saw our Blessed Mother. Our Lady would visit the souls in purgatory. And the souls, you know what they called her? You know what title they gave her? I have to ponder this more because I find it striking. They called her the Star of the Sea. And Our Lady would come and she would bring them refreshment. And Faustina wanted to talk with them more, but then her guardian angel beckoned her to leave. And she went out of what she called in her diary a prison of suffering. We should do all we can to avoid it. Now you avoid purgatory? Frequent confession, right? How you avoid purgatory? Detach from sin, live for God, right? Work on those virtues. So she said she went out of this prison of suffering. And then she heard a voice. It was the voice of Jesus. And you can read this in her diary. It's diary entry 20. And the Lord said to her, He said this, my mercy does not want this, but justice demands it. Faustina said since that time, she did everything she could for the suffering souls in purgatory. And the Lord throughout her diary would invoke her to bring those souls who are in the prison of purgatory. He said to her, immerse them in the abyss of my mercy. He says, let the torrents of my blood cool down their scorching flames. I don't think we ponder purgatory enough. I don't think we ponder the afterlife enough. I'm included in that category. I mean, we should. We really should. If we do, we would look at life very differently. The trials, the sufferings, the crosses, the temptations, our actions. The Lord said, all of these souls are so greatly loved by me, and they are making retribution to my justice. The Lord says, it's in your power to bring them relief. Draw on them the indulgences from the treasury of my church and offer it on their behalf. You know what that means? I'll translate that. There are indulgences throughout the month of November you can offer that will bring about plenary, a plenary or a partial indulgence for these souls. Unbelievably powerful for souls. But you can do something very simple too. You can have a mass. There's nothing more efficacious, nothing more powerful than having a mass offered for a purgatorial soul. So I really encourage you to do that. Have a mass offered for these souls, for your loved ones that have gone before you. Susan Tassone, who's a great friend of this show, she has those, this is the St. Joseph, there's a 33-day set of masses said for the souls. Yeah, the Gregorian masses. Thank you, Nick. That's such a good producer. He's always listening, always paying attention. The Gregorian masses. And I found a place where those masses are so inexpensive to have said, and you can have them for that loved one of yours that you want to pray for. I had some said for family members of myself. So the Lord says, bring to draw on the indulgences of the treasury of my church. Do it on their behalf. That's what you and I should do. And if you do that, if you have those masses said, if you pray that rosary, if you pray that chaplet, right? If you offer those indulgences that are possible, you're going to have eternal friends who will be interceding for you and all of your intentions when they are released into paradise. So if you only knew the torments they suffer, you would continually, Saint Faustina said, continually offer for them the alms of the Spirit, and you would pay off their debt. We had an off-air caller asking, how long do souls usually spend in purgatory? I can't answer that. God is outside of time. Right? Purgatory is outside of time. So, we look at things very temporally, very linearly. Are you there for a day? A day could feel like 1,000 years. Are you there for 1,000 years? I don't know. We'll know when we cross to the other side of the veil. It's hard to put stuff in the context of a human time frame in terms of seconds and hours, and years. I don't know. What I do know is, you don't want to spend much time there, right? You certainly want to mitigate your purgation, and certainly others. There was a story in the diary of Saint Faustina that I found striking because, you might think, Drew, you're so holy, right? Which is not true, right? And when I die, let's say I go home tonight and I'm died in a car accident. Oh, he was such a good man. He's in heaven. Please do not think of that. If I have a heart attack, if I die in a car accident, if something happens to me, if it happens to your priest, if it happens to that person you think is so virtuous and holy, do not pray for that soul. Have masses offered for those souls, especially me, right? And I'll tell you why. Saint Faustina, souls would come to her. She had all these visions of these purgatorial souls that needed prayers. And one night, guess who she was visited by? She was visited by a fellow religious sister. She was visited by a nun. I think it was Bishop Sheen who once said, hearing a nun's confessions like being pelted with popcorn, right? It's like, what do they have to confess, right? But that's the case. She recently passed away. And in her diary, she described this nun being in just terrible condition. She said her face, it was all distorted. You imagine that? Here's this nun, it was in your very convent, appears to you, asking for prayers as a fellow sister. What level of purgatory was she in, right? What kind of torment was she going through? So Faustina decided to pray for her. Faustina decided to go ahead and to pray, and she began to redouble her prayers for the soul. Well, her fellow sister came to her the next night. Guess what happened? She was in an even more horrible state, and it blew Faustina's mind. It astonished her. And she had a conversation with this purgatorial soul, and she said, why aren't my prayers having any effect? I don't understand this. And the prayers had no effect on helping her. In fact, the nun was undeterred. So Faustina just decided, I'm not going to give up. I'm going to keep praying. So sometime later, the nun again visited Saint Faustina during the night. This time, her face was radiant. Her eyes, they beamed with joy. They reflected the light of God. And Saint Faustina, she writes in her diary, she said she had a true love for her neighbor, and her many souls profited from her prayers. The radiant soul informed Saint Faustina that she, the deceased sister, would not remain in purgatory much longer. And before she left, she urged Faustina not to stop praying for the souls in purgatory. And that's the way it works. Our prayers sometimes take time. You know, you have to continue to pray for those who have gone before us. You know, love of the holy souls, Saint Faustina said. If you love them, they will love you in return. When you pray for the holy souls, you'll never find more faithful intercessors. You're praying for your kid addicted to drugs. You're praying for those financial heartaches. You know, you're praying for that broken relationship. Pray for the holy souls. You will never find more powerful intercessors than these souls. Relieve their sufferings. That's what I say to you. Okay? And they will work on your behalf now and at the hour of your death. Hey, like what you just heard? Then share it with your family and friends. And thanks for listening.